Thank you all who have stayed. I know it's a very long event, but very fruitful as well, so we appreciate you hanging in with us. I'm here today with Kevin Bunker and Jennifer Hawkins. I'm going to let you both introduce yourself and maybe a little bit about your organization and what they do, and also the last project or the most current project that you're working on.
I'll start. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Hawkins. I just joined as the CEO 6 months ago, so I am still definitely learning the lay of the land. But I recently was working in Rhode Island, and I just have to say Maine has been, everyone has really welcomed me with warmth, and it's great to be here. Avesta is an organization that's been around for 53 years, and there's several people in the audience who I've been able to meet in my travels, Gray and Westbrook and in Portland, and you know, so we are a nonprofit affordable housing developer. We develop and own and manage about 3,000 units of housing, and we actually have 54 different properties just within the greater Portland COG, about 2,000 units. So we have a lot of projects kind of in our pipeline right now. One that I'm pretty excited about is a development on Forest Avenue in Portland. It is the former Tortilla Flats restaurant. And we have some, you know, big ideas and ambitions for that redevelopment of that site, developing affordable low-income housing or deed-restricted affordable housing, as well as potentially some for-sale product as well on that site. We're going to get to this later, so I won't talk too much, but I do want to get back to the kind of the topic of adaptive reuse and how that connects with infrastructure.
Thank you. Kevin?
Kevin Bunker, Developers Collaborative. We're a smart growth oriented, sort of urban planning based real estate development firm. We're a private for-profit, but we do a lot of affordable housing, same kind of stuff Jen does. We've got about 1,200 units under management now, most of which we developed ourselves. We did about 100 million in starts and finishes last year, looking at about 150 this year. Generally, our core practice is in housing. We're about 2/3 to 3/4 housing, and over half of that is affordable housing. So affordable housing is really a primary focus. We've also done a lot of historic tax credit work. We do have some, but we have two divisions at DC. One of them is the affordable housing division, and the other one is we call it the commercial division, but it has everything in it. It's developed high-end condominiums, and it's developed 2 homeless shelters. So we'll run everything through what we call our smart growth filter to see if we think it's a good project. So infrastructure certainly has a lot to do with that. But then increasingly in recent years, what we've tried to do is take the skill sets we've learned with creative financing and financial engineering that you have to learn to do affordable housing successfully, and then try to do other projects with that. So that's, we were able to do 2 homeless shelters, a women's sober house. We did asylum seeker transitional housing that hopefully ICE hasn't been to yet today. And then the one that we're working on right now, which is cool, is we're doing a project with Bath Iron Works, an employee housing project where we sort of use some of the tactics of affordable housing with, I think it's a first of its kind partnership with the Navy and General Dynamics to do housing for the workers. And I brought a little cheat sheet there. Some of the table out there as well are, right now we're under construction in Bath, Portland, and Brunswick, and we hope to get under construction this year in Portland, Bangor, Wyndham, Augusta twice, Auburn once, Portland 2 more times, Rockland twice, and Conway, New Hampshire. So we've got 11 we're trying to get off the ground this year. So we're a growing company. About 52 of us now, affiliated development management, and looking forward to the discussion today.
So Jen, do you want to discuss about adaptive reuse and how it relates to infrastructure?
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, developing housing it's a tricky sort of verb that we work in. And, you know, Maine has a goal of 84,000 new units of housing by the year 2030. While Avesta, plays a role specifically within the deed restricted space of housing, we believe that, all housing is good housing. And, we would love to be able to, we play our role, and, Developers Collaborative and other colleagues also have a role to play. And we want to support each other in creating a smoother glide path for the production of housing in the state. I really do believe that ultimately, we have a supply shortage, and we've got to be able to address that through, land use reform and smart regulation reform, as well as creating new vehicles for capital. But when you look at how you produce housing, a greenfield kind of development versus an adaptive reuse of a school or a church or a convent that, Developers Collaborative, for instance, has done. When you've got an existing structure that you can use, it's going to have the water, it's going to have the sewer, it's going to have the utilities. It's probably going to be in a community where there's amenities and there's kind of those third spaces, if you will, that connect the residents. May even have closer to transportation. So when those opportunities present themselves, we're really excited about that. And Avesta has done a fair number of adaptive reuse developments. That said, there's also, a desire for communities that haven't really had a lot of housing to build to. And so that's where you have to do more of the greenfield developments. And, listening to the prior panelists talk about the challenges of addressing sort of the impact on the sewer and the water, and those are very legitimate challenges that municipalities face, and as a nonprofit affordable housing developer, unfortunately, we have all sorts of constraints on how much we can spend to develop housing. The Maine State Housing Misha, I learned, is how I'm supposed to actually call this entity.
I'm here for you.
Thank you.
That was just backstage. That's how
We're learning real time right here. So they have caps on the cost of the developing an affordable home. And, we really can't exceed that or we won't get financing. So in thinking about the contributions that we can make towards sidewalks and bringing, the water line in and so forth, we're constrained significantly in our ability to do that. So it really does kind of curtail where we can do development and what's possible.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin, I have a question for you. So you're a private developer, and a lot of times elected officials, town staff are asked by private developers. There was a conversation earlier about TIFs, and CEAs are not, just because we have a TIF district doesn't mean a developer is asking for a CEA, which is in plain English just a property tax kickback, so to speak. You guys always say you can't make it pencil without a CEA. Mm-hmm. Are you lying?
Maybe some of them. I think probably a lot of them probably are. I think if you look at the best way to think about development, or a good lens to look through development, is the capital stack. So the sources and uses section, there's your development budget, but the sources and uses is really where it all comes together. And your sources have to equal your uses. And your sources are going to be debt and equity, or maybe tax credits or government funding, basically anything that's a public-private type of deal where you're giving restricted rents or you're giving a community benefit. Often there's a gap that gets created. And how do you fill that? The question is, how do you fill that gap? And TIF is one of the answers. But a TIF, generally speaking, if you look at the capitalized value of a TIF, it might fill your 2% of your capital stack. So if you are 10% away and you need a TIF and 3 other things, often, maybe it makes sense. But if you got a pure market rate project and you say, I really need a TIF, and you can't link it to an infrastructure upgrade that's unusual, like a water line or a sewer line, and it doesn't pencil out on its own with the rent that you can get from the property, there's an argument that maybe you just want a TIF anyway. And so there's a political game that developers definitely play with the municipalities, and it's on the municipality to be a sophisticated negotiator with the developer, because the problem is the developer is always going to know the math better than you, because it's not your job to know the math. So you have to look out for the public interest, and to be able to do that, you have to say, well, yeah, but there's nothing really unique about this development, so why do you need a TIF? And this one over on the other side of town didn't need a TIF. So it might be that there is a unique ledge condition or infrastructure condition or intersection upgrade that's required that you can link that TIF to, but you should always try to do the best you can to have the but-for test so that you know you're not over-subsidizing the project. Now, the asterisk there is that Maine housing projects pretty much always need TIFs to get funded because it's a scoring criterion. One, the numbers are really, really thin, but Maine State Housing Authority sizes your debt load based on how much income you have. So no TIF, lower income, lower debt, higher TIF, higher income, higher debt. So it doesn't necessarily speak as much to feasibility, but if you don't have a TIF, you're probably not going to get funded. So if that municipality wants that project to go forward, they ought to heavily consider doing a TIF. And if they want to kill it, they should heavily consider not giving you a TIF.
Fair, fair. Now, have these two entities ever worked together on a project? Do you ever partner with nonprofit, and how does that look?
We have. I don't know if you do know the history of that.
Please do tell.
So when I started the company back in 2007, the predominant model for affordable housing was nonprofit ownership because there were points for it in the QAP. But they took those away 10, 15 years ago. So what our business model used to be would be find the site, put it under contract, put the whole deal together, and then bring in a nonprofit and basically give it away to them. John Egan in the audience, we worked at CEI in the past, and we did the first few projects with them. And we would bring them in as a general partner and basically give them the building. We did a few deals with Avesta Emory School. We did the one in Westbrook. I always can never remember the name. I think we did 2 to 3 deals with Avesta in the past. And all the things you own out at Brick Hill were done with Berman, my predecessor. We haven't done anything in quite a while. So we're sort of more, what do they say, co-opetition. We cooperate and we compete. So we compete every year for the tax credits, but we also share, advice and ideas and resources and stuff like that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I appreciate that kind of that history. And I think from Avesta's perspective, we're always eager to partner. Our ability to maximize and do more than one project at a time really is accelerated when we have partnerships. So a prior panelist had referenced our DOMIS initiative that we're doing in Westbrook. I think is a perfect example of this, of a nonprofit partnering with, in this instance, 2 different for-profit entities, Jack Soley, a private developer, and Hebert Construction. And so this development is kind of a significant departure from Avesta's traditional work, where we're not relying on government subsidies and the low-income housing tax credit, but are able to accomplish sort of that naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA, oftentimes you hear that acronym, by virtue of the fact that we have density coupled with compact units. And so this is a for sale development. It's a condominium project, and we're using our private equity to accomplish this goal. So I think that, in my professional past and organizations I've worked with, we've consistently partnered with for-profits and general contractors to act as a development partner, and we're eager to continue to do that in places.
Are there specific places, which I think you run into all the time, when you're scoping out certain parcels or certain parts of town, or where infrastructure limitations are a deal killer right out of the gate, or they're not a deal killer, but the political climate is such where you're like, hey, it's not even worth the cost benefit analysis of us putting in some soft costs? Are there examples of that you've run into? I think Avesta Fruit Run in Scarborough had one. Was that Avesta? But I don't know if that was infrastructure. That might have been more political. But
yeah, I would say more generally that when there's an opportunity to work with a municipality and it is cooperative from the get-go, that is always going to be more successful. When there are parcels of land that have been identified as like, we really would like to see housing here, number one. Yeah. And then we'd really like to see some or all of this be affordable housing. We're like, yes, please. Because you're set up for success, as opposed to a contentious kind of battle. So insofar as that is, we go after RFPs when municipalities put up land. But it's hard when, you may be on the brink of like one more project is going to hit the capacity of the electric grid or the water system, and then this other project that is maybe just 40 units is going to tip it over, and you're all of a sudden going to have to invest significant resources that is not going to, it's no longer viable, right? So the questions of capacity, if you can figure that out before, is good, but often, unfortunately, my understanding is that it comes later in the process. After you go through, planning and permitting, then you're looking at infrastructure, and by then you've invested a lot of time and resources, and it's hard to pull back at that late stage. It would be great if you could figure that out sooner.
Kevin, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, we try to get a sense of, we don't have dispositive information about this will be required prior to permitting and planning board, but we do try to get a sense of what it will be. We try to work with engineers and kind of knowing the ground rules of what's going on in the town and try to get a sense of what they're going to require. Absolutely. Real estate is funny because on the one hand, you're creating somewhat of a commodity, which is housing units, and the affordable units we create have a lot of similarities, but every site is different. And so you have to evaluate each site to say, okay, is it next to the road? Just because there are utilities in the street, can you actually build near the street? Or is the upland so-called developable land, is it way back from the road? Therefore, you have to take the utilities in. And I got a young guy at my company who's just coming. He was an intern, and now he's a property manager. And he's coming to the development department. He's a brilliant kid. But he said, there's this piece of land, and it's right in Wells, and it's $200,000, and it's 4 acres. And I wrote back to him, what's wrong with it? Come to find out it's all wet. You
right.
You find out pretty quick and you can't develop it. But there's always I think of infrastructure costs inherent in a site as additional land costs. So the land cost is not just a sticker price on MLS. It's what does it take to get it developed? And usually when something's cheap, it's for a reason.
Okay, last question before we take questions. You don't have to name names, but we have a lot of discussion internally at GPCOG, and our members talk about the political climate and the will of housing is difficult. So my question is, do you have a secret blackboard in your office that you have no-go towns to? That you just, and I don't want the town, but I think when you create a certain political climate, there's consequences, right? And so it might be easy as a certain community to send up the signal that we don't want housing. And my question is that signal heard and you just don't waste your time? No names.
Well, that's good because I am still learning how to pronounce all the names of the towns in Maine. But I would say that, there's options about where we can build, and developing housing, full stop, be it deed restricted or not, is hard and complicated. And so to not have to bang one head against a wall in conflict, we will try to avoid that at all costs. And so I think that there's enough places that recognize that homes are where jobs go to sleep at night, and they need homes, and they want to be able to attract and retain their workforce. And I'll go there. We'll go build there because there's enough of those places. And I think that we're demonstrating the value that we can bring as, just collaborative developers. And I believe that list of willing partners will grow.
Very good. Very political. That was good. That was very good. Kevin?
He's got a list.
Cape Elizabeth. Anybody here from Cape Elizabeth? Sorry. Too soon. No, there's no do not go here list, but the thing is it changes over time. I've been here 20 years doing stuff, and you see towns go from aggressive toward development to aggressively against development, and different types of development. Yeah. Some towns really, really want affordable and don't particularly want market rate. Some towns it's the opposite. So if you're an affordable housing developer, I think it's fair to say that probably you wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of time in Cape Elizabeth right now. There's nothing wrong with saying that out loud. You do tend to have more trouble in the bougie suburban towns around Portland to develop affordable housing. It's just a fact. I mean, everyone here knows that. It doesn't mean, but if you can get one done, It's a great project because it's a barrier to entry and there's not much of it in the community, and it's always going to be full, and it's going to be a great amenity if you can convince people and get them on board. It's just like she said, it's more work. So we do pick and choose our spots. And Portland. Where are the Portland people? Anybody? Portland? Nobody? All right. I mean the regulatory people. So Portland is funny because it's the best market in the state for urban development, but it's the most difficult and Byzantine. Yeah. Those things that's a natural truth that the harder a place, the better the market is, the harder they can be and not drive people away. And so the permitting department is incredibly difficult to work with. They'll say they're not, but they are. The planning department is quite good, actually. But the thing about Portland more, that the political climate is tricky. They're very in favor of affordable housing for the most part. But if you want to invest capital in the city of Portland, if you step back and you look at Green New Deal and you look at rent control, those policies say a lot of things. They say we want to protect tenants, we want good things for the environment, but they're also saying, if you want to bring your capital here, we're going to try and confiscate it if we can and move some of it over to someone else. So it makes it very difficult to want to invest millions of dollars in a city that essentially doesn't see that as a good thing. So we keep, we're like the abused spouse that keeps coming back. It's like, why don't you leave him? That's how we are with the city of Portland. We just love the development here. We love the urban environment, and we love trying to make it a better place. I mean, I'm a crazy person. I moved here last year after living in Brunswick for 17 years, just because I like the city. So we're here to take the abuse.
All right, I think we have time for 2 questions.
Tony Armstrong. I've kind of tracked a lot of this activity in Maine using the Maine housing programs, and obviously great success has been had by the Maine housing and developers. But what I'm seeing when you look at the pattern of development, the way this program works, as you folks know, is the rents in low-income tax credit housing are controlled by the income in the area. They're capped. And so Maine housing has found ways to fill in that capital stack, as Kevin was mentioning. But what I don't understand is, like, you go to rural areas in Maine that have got opportunities for 40-unit projects, and the numbers just don't work. They'll work in Biddeford, but they won't work up north because of these rent caps. And there isn't enough money to go around to fill in that capital stack. So I'm seeing this kind of bias, which is not really anybody's fault in the state of Maine necessarily. But it's a bias that's built into the program nationally, I think. And what I don't understand is why all these rural red state folks haven't tried to eliminate that problem by some other approach in rural areas. And I'm noticing also, you folks have been reaching out, like Kevin just said, he's doing one in Bangor. I think you said that?
Bangor,
I think
Rumford, yeah.
I think Avesta's doing a project. I think it's in
Farmington.
Farmington, yeah. I think Farmington, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting out there, but it's just a lot more territory. And I know they've tried to fill in with the rural program, which has been great. But I just don't understand why this anomaly has occurred nationally, where the rural areas are getting screwed, quite frankly.
I think you're completely right. It is very challenging to construct 9% or 4% low-income housing tax credit projects in areas where the rents are lower, right? So a tax credit program has a max collectible rent that's established, and it's based on the area median income of the locality where the project's being developed. So the Portland AMI is much higher than the Farmington or other more rural areas AMI. And so that max rent is based on that area's AMI. When you've got a lower AMI, that means we got lower rent, and that means the debt that we can bring on the project is lower, and the subsidy to make the capital stack work is going to be higher. And so in a limited subsidy environment, you're going to have a gap. And so you just sort of end up going to places where you can maximize the debt. And to do that by building in areas where you can collect higher rents. So, I mean, I think that the point around, is there like an opportunity for federal reform on that? It would, I think, require ability to increase the amount of federal subsidies like home and CDBG and housing trust funds that states avail themselves of to close that gap. I think that's probably where the advocacy needs to occur.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't think the bias is so much as intentional as maybe sort of the path of least resistance on a few fronts. So 60% of the market for LIHTC deals is us, her, and Portland Housing Authority over the last 10 years. So that's right, we're all based in Portland, within 5 miles of each other. So there's a, sophisticated development group, Bangor Housing Authority is pretty good. There are some others, but really there's a dearth of sort of sophisticated, aggressive, affordable housing developers outside of Cumberland County. So it's sort of the path of least resistance for us as we see sites, and Portland really wants these projects, and South Portland's pretty good to work with, and Westbrook, and so you tend to see them down here. And then on the investment side, the tax credit investors that are underwriting the deals are much more comfortable with a Portland deal than they are about a Rumford deal, just because that cushion, there's going to be enough people to fill the building, the rent's going to be high enough. And even though Maine Housing underwrites deals so that they all are supposed to sort of perform more or less the same, Portland deal will have more debt, more must-pay debt on it than a Rumford deal which will have none. The fact of the matter is that in the last 10, 15, 20 years, underwriting is based on AMI projected increases of 2 to 3%. And AMI has been jumping and going up faster than that. So what happens is you've got projects that have been outperforming their underwriting. So our Scarborough, Portland projects now, 5, 10 years in, are far more profitable than our projects in Auburn, Lewiston, Rumford, which make almost no money. So there's this sort of path of least resistance. If you can get one in Scarborough, Westbrook, or Portland, and your office is there, and the investors are going to like it, and they'll give you a TIF, easy peasy. If you want to do one in Farmington, or if you did guys at the Fry School, or some of the one we did in Rumford, you have to almost work to do it and go up there, and the town has to really want you and say, we really want to make this happen, because it's extra work for a skinnier project.
Mm-hmm. I just want to just real quick follow-up. I basically described the problem I was describing, and I appreciate the fact you see it happen. The other thing is, you get to the private sector, which is where I've worked with, private bank financing. It's a similar problem. I had two very large projects I worked on. One in Biddeford, exactly the same project, 250 units. Rebel ended up doing one in Biddeford, just hit 90% occupancy. A similar one in Augusta, right near the Turnpike exit. Similar project, no real financing. And in fact, in the Augusta area, if you think about it, going back 30 years, and I've been kicking around there, there's been almost no new non-Maine housing privately financed projects. So there ain't no comps. It started to become some tops in Brunswick, et cetera. It's really kind of an anomaly that's got to be addressed.
When you look at the private financing market, because we do a ton of that too, and you have to look at the comps, and the appraisal is really where it stems from. So if you go up to Bangor, and we're trying to do some affordable condos up there right now and sell them for $240 to $260, well, you can get a house for that. Some of the stuff that you're doing with the Domus initiative, they're small condos, the sticker price is lower. You can't own anything for anything close to that in the areas at which you're looking. But if you, and I know you're looking at secondary and tertiary cities, I'm sure you're thinking very carefully about whether or not you're going to push people into single family homes at the prices that you want. So it's the local housing market, and a lot of these secondary and tertiary cities in Maine we might be 84,000 units short, but it's 84,000 of the right kind of units. There are houses listed today for under $200,000 in Bangor that maybe need a little work, but they're not half bad. So for me to go up there and try to sell a $250,000 condo and explain to somebody why they can't have their own yard, it's a much tougher sell than down here in Portland, where it seems like a screaming deal. So
And I will say that, you can't build a new house for $200,000. So, I mean, that's also, I think, that the hard part of this is like, but wait, I could buy an existing home,
Right.
right? But the energy code, the cost of materials, the labor costs, et cetera, the replacement is not equitable there, yeah.
But Jen, I'm going to make that the last word. I'm going to have that as the two questions because we are behind and we have guests that have generously donated their time to us for the next panelist. So thank you both. Thank you. If there's more questions for either of them, please approach them after this or follow up or email. Round of applause for our guests.